Hey friends, welcome to episode 10 of the Plant-Based Diet Benefits Podcast. This is your host, Trent Lindsay. I am a mastering raw food nutrition educator and currently studying to be a health coach through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. This has become my passion in life to spread the message of a plant-based diet with you all, and I'm super excited about today's episode. I get the chance to speak with plant-based Jeff, who has lost about 150 pounds on a plant-based diet over the years and is an avid runner as well. One of the things he mentions in the podcast is the fact that he gets to run now that he's been on a plant-based diet. It's not something he did prior to, and it's something that he gets to do now because of the fact that he was able to lose weight and become healthier. And that's one of the things that I want for all of you as well. I want you to be able to do something new because of the fact that you're able to lose weight. I think it's one of the key messages that we talk about in today's episode. But he also talks about the other benefits he's experienced on a plant-based diet. His biggest piece of advice for people who have not yet decided to go plant-based. And of course, how we can connect with Jeff to kind of learn more and follow his journey. So without further ado, let's start the show. All right. Hey, friends. It's your host, Trent Lindsay. I'm excited to be back with you guys. And today I have plant-based Jeff with me on the line. I'm very excited to have him on the show. Thank you, Jeff, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm real excited to talk with you.
Excellent. So if you don't mind, I want to give you just a little bit of time to introduce yourself to those that are listening. So if you don't mind just giving us a little bit of info about who you are and a little background for us.
Sure. My name is Jeff. I go by Plant-Based Jeff on Facebook. Been married to my beautiful wife for almost 10 years. Our 10-year anniversary is coming up this year. And I have a 4-year-old daughter, which kind of helped spark my change and me wanting more out of life for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I barely have you beat. I've been married for almost 11 years. This year is 11 for me. So I barely have you beat. But I definitely resonate with you. You know, like once you have kids, you got a different perspective on what's important in life. So that's great. I look forward to hearing more about that and how that change came into place. So, but absolutely. Like before you decided to go plant-based, because I know you weren't born that way. What was, your typical diet like, just so that way, other people kind of relate to maybe what they're doing now. Did you eat a pretty standard American diet? Was there a lot of fast food, home cooked meals? What did it look like?
Yeah, growing up, my mom and dad made sure we had good food on the table. I really don't recall much fast food, so I don't think my family really did much of that. My mom would make, the standard meatloaf, and my dad would make some different stir fries and those type of things. So they always made sure we had a good home cooked meal on the table, and with thoughts of thinking, it was most likely a healthy dinner for everybody without really knowing the details of what was in the food. And as I was growing up, I really didn't have any weight issues or anything like that. I was a really active kid. But the one thing that I did have, I had a paper route and had a little bit of money, and that money was spent on candy all the time. I was a candy holic for sure. I would just still remember as a little kid riding down the street on my bike with money in my pocket, where I was just so excited to get my next bag of candy. And even my friends would joke around because I was the guy who always had a bag of candy in his hand.
Oh, that sugar is addicting. There's a lot of people that can really resonate with that.
Absolutely.
It's hard to resist. I mean, that's why they put it right there at the grocery store checkout, right? It's like you're checking out even with all your whole cart could be filled with produce, and that you're making a right choice, in terms of eating whole food, plant-based, bunch of produce in my cart, and then you see that candy. And even as somebody who eats plant-based, it could be tough.
Absolutely.
Just because it's, you kind of get that mental rush, whenever you do have it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great in terms of, how you're raised. I know I was raised very similar to that, not much fast food. We had a whole lot of home cooked meals, and, we try to eat healthy. Like my parents were, they weren't like constant dieters or anything, but like they focused on health and just kind of using the information that they had. Right. So at some point you decided to kind of veer off of that path and choose a plant-based diet. I'm assuming it's around the time maybe your daughter was born. What was that kind of pivotal moment for you when you decided to go plant-based?
I can tell you, but before I even got into the plant-based thing, through college, I was fairly fit. I was on like the national fitness team and this and that, but before I knew it, after I graduated and started living with my buddies and had like a desk job and sat there and everything, I gained over 100 pounds in about a year. So things went wrong very quickly for me. And that's where a lot of like I don't know if I wouldn't call it fast food because I wasn't hitting Burger King and the likes like that, but I was hitting a lot of local pizza shops and getting cheesesteaks and French fries and pizzas for dinner every night. In the morning, I was grabbing, multiple bagels with bacon and cheese and sausage and egg and everything like that. So I quickly gained my weight from those type of things. And then I started this battle that went on for about 10 years where I was trying everything to lose that 100 pounds. And I lost and gained anywhere from 60 to 80 pounds, probably about 5 times in that period of time. A lot of it was done through different programs that people are familiar with, like Weight Watchers. There was LA Weight Loss that I felt was the most successful one for me at that time. However, it never really taught me much about food. It really never taught me much about nutrition or anything like that. Really, all it did was teach me how to restrict my calories. So I even used some of the calorie counting apps like the Lose It app and the MyFitnessPal. So it was a constant struggle for about 10 years. And when I finally found plant-based, I had lost 90 pounds again on the Lose It app. And at the same time, a friend of mine was talking about how he was doing plant-based. So we were kind of losing weight together. I was using the Lose It app. He was losing it with his plant-based. And then before I knew it, I started to gain the weight back. And he just kept losing it. And then what ended up happening is my father-in-law was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2016, and near the end of 2016. So I started doing research in ways to try to help him. And in doing that, I came across Forks Over Knives, which most people in the plant-based world are familiar with, if not every single person in the plant-based world is familiar with. So I found Forks Over Knives. I started printing out information and giving him information to read, but I was reading it as well. And that, in conjunction with seeing my friends still be successful with his plant-based journey, I kind of decided in early 2017, actually on March 1st of 2017, because I decided that I was going to give plant-based eating a shot for Lent for 40 days. I was going to just give it a shot and see how it made me feel and see if this would help.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did a similar approach where I just wanted to give it a try, I mean, in your situation, you've tried different, dietary approaches. Some worked better than others. So, it kind of makes sense, right? Like this is just another option. Let's give it a try. Because I know a lot of people, they kind of ease into a plant-based diet a little bit more, in terms of, maybe just eating, their like 3 nights a week they eat plant-based or something like that, and then increase it over time. But I think it's a lot easier to see kind of the benefits of a plant-based diet when you just go 100%, make a shift from day one. I mean, in terms of your weight loss, so like you had mentioned, you'd lost a good amount of weight there. I'm using the Lose It app, but then it started coming back. Do you mind me asking, like, how much you weighed at that time and kind of where you're at now?
I can tell you at my highest weight, it was over 350 pounds. I don't know exactly because my scale only went to 350 pounds. So, I would step on it, I wouldn't multiple times. I stepped on it the one time. I kept seeing that number creep higher and higher. And then the one time I stepped on it and, I got the error message on the scale, and I was just, devastated, but at that point and through a lot of my life at that time, whenever I was down or upset, I would eat my feelings, which a lot of people do. I've grown to find out. And so I know that I didn't stop at that point. I continued to eat and wallow in the sorrows and continued to gain. But I really don't know what I topped out at. My guess and what I typically tell people or think is probably around 360 pounds or so. But I'm really not sure. I'm not sure how much I weighed at the highest. But I do know that I'm a lot less than that now. I'm down to, I still have weight I would like to lose. I'm down to, I don't weigh myself very often. I've grown to learn that really the number on the scale is not that important. And I think that's a big part of why I've been successful. I'm doing this. I'm focusing on my health and my well-being, and my weight is falling off on its own as I'm trying to just focus on being healthier. So last time I weighed myself, I was 217 pounds. I know I still have more weight to lose, but I also know that if I continue to do the right things and eat a healthy plant-based diet, that my body will find the perfect weight, whatever that may be. And one day when I step on the scale, it'll be there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's great. I applaud you because I know that's difficult. And, before we started recording the podcast episode today, you had mentioned that you'll show some of your before and after pictures, and there's usually like that line in between the before and the after picture, and how often that line is kind of overlooked. Like that's the journey from the before to the after, and it's not like an easy path to take, for a lot of people, and I'm sure it was hard for you too. Yeah. So, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, let's go into that, that approach of how you decided to go plant-based. I know for me, like I still had, that first month or probably even like 5 or 6 months, I was still eating like the imitation meats and pretty much just trying to replicate my old diet, but just subbing out the meat for a meat replacement type of approach. Where now I don't necessarily do that. What was it like for you when you first started eating this way? What kind of choices were you making? And then kind of to add on to that, were you doing any sort of like exercise and stuff like that to lose the weight too?
Well, when I first started eating this way, I'd mentioned my one friend who went plant-based. I had connected into a number of friends and different people online who have all been through the journey, who are all on it. And it's a secret Facebook group. I don't know if I'm going to expose some of it, but some people do know of it. It's called the Missing Chins Run Club. And a few of us kind of gathered together. I definitely did not start the group, but I was in there in the very beginning. And that really helped kind of set my mind in the right way on how to approach things. The creator of the group, he was putting a lot of us on a mindset of trying not to eat those kind of imitation things and try to look at our lives as the way humans were, thousands and thousands of years ago, where we were dependent upon traveling by foot and by foraging for our food and those type of things. So he always told us we should try to eat our foods in the most natural state as possible. And that really resonated with me. So I was never tempted by the plant-based like cheeses or imitation meats or anything like that. Not to say that I didn't have some of that stuff. When I first started, I definitely depended upon things like veggie burgers and peanut butter sandwiches and things like that definitely aren't in their food in their natural state. But I was never tempted by the things that are out there today, like these Beyond Burgers and Impossible Burgers or the imitation cheeses. It never really appealed to me. And to me, I always knew it was a slippery slope for me. That it could be very easy for me to go from a plant-based burger that tastes like meat to just saying, you know what, I'm just going to have a burger that tastes like meat, that is meat. So I avoided a lot of that stuff. And I've kind of gone down the path of eating whatever is simple in its natural form. So I tell people, when they ask me, instead of, let's say, a bag of potato chips, I'll just have a potato. Instead of a slice of apple pie, I'll just have an apple. And I try to keep it as simple as possible, because a lot of the weight I gained, when I was talking about how I gained that 100 pounds, a lot of it wasn't based on desires or wants, as far as like, I'm craving this cheeseburger. A lot of it was out of convenience. A lot of it was just trying to get my stomach as full as possible, as fast as possible. And I haven't changed that. I still eat that way. Now I just pick a more sensible, a smarter type food choice, like grabbing 3 baked potatoes and throwing them in the microwave and gobbling them down in a matter of minutes, and having that same stuffed feeling, just in a much smarter way.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've read the book called The Pleasure Trap.
I'm very familiar with it, but I'm guilty of not reading it yet. I have a stack of books similar to, like I was telling you about my stack of video games. I have a stack of books that I have been going through. I have not read Pleasure Trap yet, but I'm familiar with it. And I think there's like a YouTube video out there or something as well about it, which I have watched. But I haven't read the book yet, no.
Yeah, well, it's basically the concept behind the Pleasure Trap, and definitely, get a copy of it. I'd recommend it. I've referenced it a couple of times on this podcast already, because I like it so much. But the essence of it is that everybody is like designed to try to get the most amount of pleasure with using the least amount of energy while also avoiding pain. So like what you just mentioned there, it's like it was just the food was more a matter of convenience. Well, that's, the least amount of effort, basically. You got the pleasure from the food without really having to do a lot of work behind it.
Absolutely.
And I totally understand that. And then I kind of wish if I was in that secret Facebook group of yours, because man, when I first decided to go plant-based, I was inspired by somebody who had like in his videos about what he ate, there was a lot of like vegan sausages, and he had the vegan cheeses and like the vegan mac and cheeses that are out there. Like he was eating that kind of stuff all the time, and he was very fit. But I think his physical activity allowed him to have those types of foods, even though they're maybe a little bit more calorie dense. And even to this point, right? Like I still kind of have a craving for those, because I started out my plant-based journey by eating that type of stuff. But I try to eat simple like you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask me like my feelings on those kind of things, and I always try to be very clear with this. I don't want people to think that, because some people that eat plant-based or vegan, depending on how you approach it, seem to come off judgmental with the kind of foods that people eat and everything. And my feeling on all of that kind of stuff, although I may not eat it, I still encourage other people too. If that's the stepping stone that somebody needs to get away from meat and dairy, is to eat those kind of foods as they slowly make a transition. I think it's great, and I fully support people, because anything that we can do to help guide people in the direction of plant-based eating, in my opinion, is a positive thing, no matter what those steps are to get there. Everyone's journey is different, but as long as we're helping people get there one way or another through these Impossible Burgers or things like that, then I'm all for it. It's just a lot of times before a lot of that stuff even came out, I was kind of already, I don't want to say beyond it, but kind of beyond it. I prefer just having a veggie burger or a potato over something that tastes like the imitation meat.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, everybody, definitely has their own journey. And that's one of the great things about a podcast like this, where I'm interviewing others on their specific journey. To a plant-based diet. No two journeys have been the same so far, and I doubt they ever will be. And that's one of the great things about it. You kind of get to pick how you want to approach it, and everybody has a different starting point. So,
absolutely.
I want to follow up on a question regarding like exercise and stuff like that, because I know some people, maybe when they're at a certain weight, have a hard time exercising, but I think you've maybe already had some of that routine in place. But did you exercise quite a bit? I know you like to run, but did you exercise quite a bit while you lost the weight on a plant-based diet?
I had exercise and things. I was big into biking. This was years ago, and even when I was heavy, I was doing a lot of biking and things like that. I did a 100-mile bike race when I was 330 pounds. But my feeling is, and it just goes to show you that it really is all about the food. And when I started my plant-based journey, I wasn't exercising or moving my body at all. And when I originally started plant-based for Lent, I was going to do it for 40 days. And really within a couple of weeks, I felt like I was bouncing off the wall. I just had so much energy and felt so good. Like one of the things that really sparked me wanting to go plant-based is, I had a young daughter at that point. She was, she's only 4 now. She was, I guess, 2 at the time. And I remember walking down the steps and my knees hurt so bad. I was hanging onto the rail just to walk down the steps. And I was just like, this can't happen. Like, this just is not, I can't live this way. And I'm certainly not going to be able to be a good active father dealing with this kind of stuff. So as I started to lose the weight, a couple weeks in, I started to have more energy. I started to walk a bit more. I decided to download that Couch to 5K app. I started running a bit, and then it just kind of took off from there. The more energy I had, and the more I was running, just these, little, when I first started, I think it was little 60-second runs, and then, 5-minute walks to recover from that 60 seconds of running. But I just wanted to be better at it. I just wanted to become a better runner. For whatever reason, I just started feeling like, I can be an athlete again. I think this can really help spark myself and move myself in the right direction. So, I slowly started running more and more. But I always am very clear that the exercise came because of the plants. I started exercising because I had extra energy and I needed to find a way to burn it off. But I know plenty of people who have lost a lot of weight eating plant-based and not moving anything beyond just going for a walk around the block a few times. So it's all about the food. And I'm a very strong believer in that. It's all about the food, because sometimes people look at me now and say, oh, well, this guy runs marathons. Of course he's losing weight, but it really is about the food. It has nothing to do with the exercise. It's just, I get to exercise. I get to run marathons because I've chosen to go plant-based.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've downloaded that same exact Couch to 5K app. And yeah, I don't think it's on my phone anymore, but I may need to download it again.
When I first started, I mean, I couldn't run for more than 60 seconds. And I was just out in Leadville, Colorado this past weekend running a marathon that's known as one of the hardest marathons in the country. And actually for this year, there was an Olympic runner there who is quoted in Runner's World as saying it was the hardest race she's ever done in her life. And I did it and finished it. And it was all thanks to plants and being able to recover quickly and have the energy and lose the weight from eating plants.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a Nordic Track bike in my office that I like to use. I injured my knee like a while back, and it takes a lot of effort for me to be able to like do running and stuff like that without re-injuring it. Basically I have to do a lot of stretching. But whenever I hear people's stories like yours, where you're running marathons and stuff like that, I would love to do that kind of stuff. And one day that's my plan. But I think before we started recording, I was talking about the fact that I have 4 young kids, and they keep me busy. There's not as much time, but I can like sit on my bike and maybe not do like an intense bike workout, but I can get on there and just pedal away while I'm watching some videos about nutrition, or maybe listening to a podcast, right? Like it's something I can do like right inside the comfort of my home.
I'm sure you're doing plenty of running when you're chasing 4 kids too that you don't even know about.
Yeah. I have my Fitbit, and it tracks your active minutes and how many steps you've taken and all that kind of stuff. And I've definitely seen an uptick since summer came. My kids are home, and so like once I'm off of work and whatnot, it's we've been a little bit more active because they aren't tired from school.
Absolutely.
All right, very cool. So, I've heard a lot about, like what you did to become more healthy. I know you got a lot of energy from going plant-based. The ability to exercise is huge. And obviously you've lost some weight. Is there any other like key benefits that you'd like to bring up regarding the plant-based diet, and how maybe you've felt better since then?
I'll say I was very fortunate. I came from a family that has longevity in it. And I feel like I was taking advantage of it for a long time. So I guess I should say I was fortunate enough to avoid diabetes and those type of things. But I do know for certain, since going plant-based, I mean, my insides are healthier than they've ever been. I mean, even when I was on the national fitness team and doing all these different things, the one thing is I never watched my eating. And now I know, because I remember whenever I would go to the doctors, even when I was thin, I had like a fatty liver. I had high triglycerides were one that they had always said that I had. And for the longest time, it was just, that was my life. And I thought, yeah, I'm healthy, I'm a good weight, and I can do 100 push-ups and this and that and everything. But now with the focus on my insides, I know, like, my cholesterol is lower. My triglycerides are in normal range. I have a very low heart rate, resting heart rate now, which I do attribute to the running. But the lower cholesterol and triglycerides and those type of things are definitely all benefit from the plant-based eating.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much going to be the case with anybody you talk to on a plant-based diet. And
sure.
If you're out there listening to this episode right now and that you have high cholesterol, or your blood sugar is elevated, or the triglycerides and other factors, maybe just something as simple as like your blood pressure. is elevated too. Like going on a plant-based diet just improves pretty much every single one of those numbers that would come back from your labs. I know it's made a difference in mine, and I get all that kind of lab work done every year just to stay on top of it and make sure I'm not going in the wrong direction, which hasn't been the case at all.
That's excellent.
So we've talked about like the benefits that you've had on a plant-based diet. Let's talk about maybe some conversations you've had with other people. Like, what's the biggest piece of advice that you give to people if they reach out to you on your Facebook page, for example, on how they can achieve similar results as you did?
The two big things I always tell people, and the one really hits home for me. For a while, I was just watching. I kept feeling like I had to gather more information and learn every single thing out there before I could make a transition. And finally, I just said enough's enough, because while I was doing all that research and this and that, I was gaining more weight. And a lot of things were happening in my life. And finally, I was just like, I can't keep trying to learn everything. So I decided to just jump in head first. And I recommend that to people, because I see so many people who just message me all the time and ask questions. Well, what about this? And what about that? And then 2 weeks later, it's like, well, what about this? And then maybe a month after that, another question, and trying to learn and this and that. And the truth of it is, and this is how I started, I had no idea what I was doing. I just decided I am no longer going to eat meat or dairy. And that was it. And I just said, I can't keep watching. I'm jumping in. I'm not eating meat and dairy. I'll learn the rest as I go. And I recommend that to everybody, to stop watching. I see so many people post like, I'm starting on Monday. And one of my first questions always is, why Monday? Like, why not right now? So I always tell people, start right now. You don't need to wait till you're past the next party or the next vacation or whatever. You need to start it right away, and you'll see the benefits within 2 weeks. I know a number of other people who did, and that was just cutting out meat and dairy. And the rest I've learned as I've gone along. I tell people to try to cut out as much processed foods as they can. Try to eliminate sugars and oils as best as you can, but you don't have to be perfect from the day one. You can try to just be a little bit better than you were the day before. Try to progress and push yourself a little harder. If you're trying to walk a block, maybe walk 2 blocks the next week or the next day. Just always try to do something a little bit more than you did the day before. And I also tell people to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We live in a world, and we talked about this earlier in the podcast, where when we were talking about the pleasure trap a little bit, we are designed in our brains to be as comfortable as possible. So we have to fight our own brains and really learn to be uncomfortable and put yourself in positions where you're going to be uncomfortable, because that's where you make the true gains. And then as far as the eating part, where I've really started to find success, I definitely lost weight just cutting out meat and dairy. But when I really, really, really started to succeed, I started paying attention to caloric density. And it really resonated with me, because it just made a lot of sense into pretty much tricking my body and feeling full all the time for the lowest amount of calories possible. So I always give the example, if because a lot of people say, oh, I carry a pocket full of almonds with me to curb my appetite if I need a snack, a healthy snack, which is great. However, if you look at the calories that are involved in, say, a handful of almonds, I don't count calories. I haven't in a long, long time. So I'm going to throw numbers out there that may not be accurate, but we'll use 500 calories as an example. If we had a handful of almonds, and it's probably about 500 calories or so, if you eat those 500 calories, it's only going to fill up a handful of space in your stomach. Whereas if you had 500 calories of, say, broccoli or apples, we're talking an armful. We're talking 5 apples. So if you had 500 calories in apples instead of that little handful of almonds, you'd probably eat 3 of them and be stuffed. You'd still have 200 calories or 2 apples left over, and you're going to be completely full for a lot longer than if you just ate a handful of nuts. So the caloric density thing, I think, is very, very important when going plant-based as well.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Calorie density is such a simple concept too. Once you kind of learn the basics of, what makes something more calorically dense. Well, like in your example there, right? Like you could have that handful of almonds, and I don't know if that's 500 calories or not either, but I know like a banana is about 100 calories. So, I'd rather have the 5 bananas and I'd be a whole lot more full.
Exactly.
But yeah, one of these days I'm going to have an episode just on caloric density too, because it's such an important topic for people to understand. And especially when you're first starting out, because I think it'll make the biggest difference then too.
For sure. Well, feel free to include me on that one, because I'm very passionate about the caloric density. And again, though, when I started this, I knew nothing about caloric density, and I was eating, the veggie burgers and things like that, which I still eat now every once in a while, but it makes a lot more sense to eat like a couple potatoes that are going to fill my stomach for a lot less calories than, a veggie burger.
Moving on to the next kind of piece of advice. I know for a lot of people, they may not like eat at home as much. They might, do like you did, where you're eating at, like pizza shops and stuff like that. And when you go plant-based, you oftentimes will find out you're eating more inside your own kitchen. I know this is something you recently have talked about with some colleagues of yours, like when you're doing your race and stuff like that. But what type of appliances have you found to be the most beneficial to have in your kitchen to make things easier when it comes to cooking?
Well, my absolute favorite is an air fryer. I had one for a while, but I actually fell in love with it over the past couple months, and reason being is I did a little potato challenge just on my own kind of thing. I had some advice from a couple friends just because I didn't really know what to expect, but I ate nothing but potatoes for 30 days for breakfast, lunch, dinner, any meal in between. And I did it for my own personal reasons to try to kind of reset my taste buds a bit and to just kind of reset where I was with my food and things like that, because I do have a food addiction, and I sometimes need to put myself back in check, and that's what I had done with this 30-day potato challenge. But my air fryer became my best friend. I was making French fries and air fried potato chips and potato wedges and everything in this thing, using it probably 3 times a day, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I've used an air fryer before. There was a short period of time where I was in between homes. My wife and I and our family were selling one house, but we had to go live somewhere else while we before we bought the other one. And I was living back home with my parents. Awesome to be in your 30s and you're moving back home with your parents. But I moved back home with my parents, and they had just recently gotten an air fryer, and it's one of the things that's like on my list of kitchen appliances I want next, because it was really nice, even for something like tofu. That's something that like our kids absolutely love tofu, and it's a good protein source for young kids. They really like it. They aren't big into beans yet, so. But anyways, you can toss like just diced up tofu inside that thing, and it turns out really nice. And then you could finish it off with like a sauce, and at least with the one that my parents had. I'll be linking to that in the show notes too. At least the one that I had used and really liked. I know when I have the opportunity, I'm going to be buying that exact one. So
nice.
Very cool. And so if you don't mind, Jeff, we're going to talk a little bit about your Facebook group? I know you go again by Plant-Based Jeff on Facebook. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do there in terms of spreading the plant-based message?
Sure. I mean, really, I'm just when I started this journey, I had a friend reach out to me, and at the time, I barely even knew him. But I friend requested him on Facebook, and he accepted it, and I reached out to him just because I was struggling in the beginning, and he took the time to I guess I would say calling, but it wasn't calling. He did something through the Facebook Messenger where he sent me some audio messages through, and I just felt like so lucky and so honored to have somebody like that reach back out to me and use his own personal time to help me. And it really did set me on a path to succeed. And I really all I want to do is return the favor to others. And I know that I was struggling, and I know a lot of people out there do struggle. And if I could be that one voice that helps, change somebody's lives or change a person's life and help them to get that extra little push they need to stay the path and to become plant-based, then that's all I really want to do. So that's why the Plant-Based Jeff account exists. I have people ask me about whether I have an Instagram or a blog or a website or offer services. Honestly, I don't have any of that right now. I am going to start an Instagram. I have had people reach out to me about coaching them, and I may look into that avenue or something like that in the future. But as of right now, I'm really just trying to help people and get the word out about plants as best as I can.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's a perfect way to kind of pay it forward, right? Somebody helped you out, and now you're doing your best to help other people out. And I think that's one of the greatest things about this community, because I know sometimes there's that perception that we, are kind of judgmental about what other people eat and stuff like that. But I think the reason for that is we just kind of are eager to share the information with others because in hindsight, we always kind of wish maybe that somebody would have shared the information with us when we were younger,
Absolutely.
Like that's kind of like one of the biggest regrets, right? Is like we didn't go plant-based a long time ago.
Absolutely. I wasted my 30s being heavy and, I can't get that time back. And if I can help somebody else get it instead, then I've succeeded in my mission.
That's perfect. And just all the listeners out there, I'll be posting the link to Jeff's Facebook page in the show notes. So please be sure to check that out. It's at www.plantbaseddietbenefits.com/10. And Jeff, it's been a lot of fun chatting with you today. I really appreciate you taking time to be on the show.
It's been great, Trent. I appreciate it.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast episode with Plant-Based Jeff. He was a lot of fun to chat with, and he has inspired me to go out and download that Couch to 5K app. I want to be like him. I want to go running. I want to get more active, but of course it'll take time, and I hope he inspired you guys a little bit to become more healthy as well. Be sure to subscribe to our show for future episodes. Next up, we have Prema Om, who is also, of course, on a plant-based diet, and she is a psychotherapist as well. And what was really exciting for me to get the chance to talk with her is that she's a fellow classmate of mine at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And her experience on a plant-based diet and her perspective is really great. She also offers up a free menu download in that episode as well. So be sure to subscribe to the show so that way you won't miss out on that episode. And then, of course, you can visit our website as well, the plantbaseddietbenefits.com website, and sign up for our email distribution list there too, so you'll get notified of upcoming emails, as well as a chance to participate in our free weekly Q&A call, which I offer for new subscribers to our website. Lastly, if you'd like to join our Plant-Based Diet Benefits community on Patreon, please do check that out. It is at www.plantbaseddietbenefits.com/Patreon. That's Patreon. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to listen today, guys. I look forward to having you guys listen in on the next episode with Prema. You guys have a great day. Take care.